All right, you all have a good meeting.
Thank
Have a
you.
good-
Have a good
bye-bye.
night. Okay, so good evening. Welcome to the May 2023 meeting of the Special Committee on Racial Equity for Community Board 8. We're so pleased to have two presenters this evening. Shirley Lero, who is from the Bronx Health Link, as well as Vanessa Gamara, who is a licensed social worker and also works at the Chief Medical Examiner's Office. So we're thrilled to have both of you here. This is a special committee of the Community Board. We're not a standing committee, but we've been in existence, I think, for 2-3 years now. So we meet relatively monthly, and we talk about a number of issues regarding racial equity that occur within the district, that take place in the adjacent districts, something that sort of, there's a number of standing committees, and we try to not compete with what the standing committees are discussing. So they discuss health and education and land use, housing, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the many facets and functions that the community board looks at in terms of services provided to constituents within the district. But this special committee, we look to discuss issues that are cross-cutting, that are not just specific to one area or another. Obviously, racial inequity occurs within, within our communities across the board. This is an effort to sort of highlight some of those inequities and ways that we can better provide services within the community. We look to build partnerships with standing committees and give recommendations on funding and other areas where we are looking for additional resources within the community. So that's just sort of a broad brush of what we do in this committee. And so we're so thrilled to have two guest presenters tonight. As I mentioned to both of you, we've been having conversations about, last month we had a presentation from the mayor's office on gender-based violence, and an issue that occurred, or sort of a trending matter that we were alerted to was the high rate of victimization of Black women and women of color within our district, as well as throughout the entire Bronx. It's one of the most urgent and pressing concerns that there is. And so some of those comments led to questions about resources for specifically for Black women. There's certainly a number of national trends that we're seeing as well in terms of Black maternal health rates, mortality rates, most alarmingly, and just really trying to drive awareness around resources and opportunities that are available to women in the Bronx, and certainly make health and wellness resources more available to our district, and so that we can discuss them. One matter before we get into the presentations, I did want to just ask for a quick vote on the March 2023 minutes. If anyone has any concerns, comments, etc., please let me know. But otherwise, I'm hoping that someone can make a motion to vote on those minutes.
I'm making a motion to vote and approve the minutes, but also I just wanted to say hello and apologies that I have a little bit of a family situation going on, and at exactly 7:30 I will jump off the call, but the motion is on the table to approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you. Okay, terrific. So let's get to the conversation. So Shirley,
Wait, Margaret, we didn't
we're so
actually vote yet. We just made a motion to vote, right? So.
Any abstentions? any votes against the minutes? Otherwise, I'll consider them unanimously passed. Okay, Shirley, we're going to start with you. And thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for juggling classes and being here as a resource to the community. So we're so thrilled to hear from you. And I've made you a co-host, so please share whatever resources that you'd like.
Great, thank you so much. I just also want to say that my daytime job, my A job is I'm an associate professor of criminal justice. I'm a criminologist. So Vanessa, I will be reaching out to you because we do a criminal justice careers event, and I would love to have someone from the medical examiner's office. So that's just another plug there. So thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen right now. Let's see, share. Oh, basic, sorry. I've become one of those people that I have problems sharing my screen. And this is our website. And just so you know, I am the administrative director of the Bronx Health Link. The Bronx Health Link has existed for 25 years. It was created by the Bronx Borough President, along with some partner hospitals, to address the health disparities across the Bronx, just generally. And over the past few years, we focused on maternal and infant health, particularly because of the distressing rates of maternal mortality, infant mortality, and also maternal morbidity, which refers to the degradation of health after a person gives birth. So I just wanted to show you our cover page. It has some data. This is actually the latest data. There are Bronx report cards that are issued by private organizations like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, but the New York City-based data is still a few years old. So at last count, right, it does say that Black and brown women are 10 times more likely to die from childbirth-related causes than women. And in the Bronx, that is just as high. And there are certain zip codes where those numbers are particularly high. And one of the things that we do is, I'm going to share, is we're in collaboration. Do you see this flyer? Everyone sees this flyer, yes? We are working in collaboration with the Department of Health, and it's a really great program called the Birth Justice Defenders. And what it is, it's a community-based program where we recruit just regular old people, no professional organizers or community-based organizers, just people in their neighborhoods that serve as ambassadors to educate their neighbors about their rights in hospital, and in particular birthing persons, about their rights in hospitals. A significant reason why women, particularly Black women, experience such harmful episodes in hospitals is because they're not listened to. They're frequently told when they say there's something wrong, no, there's nothing wrong with you, you're okay. Serena Williams very famously wrote an essay about when she gave birth to her first child, how no one listened to her. She almost died, right? But she's a very wealthy, powerful woman whose voice was finally heard. And, you know, thank goodness she was okay. But not every person, particularly our Bronx women, where the income levels are significantly lower than the even US average, are listened to, right? And so they experience these really harmful episodes. And so this is a great program where we recruit people to serve as ambassadors, and we give them a toolkit. It's this brochure to tell them what a dignified hospital experience is. And so I wanted to mention that. We are focusing our recruitments in the zip codes where the highest rates of maternal mortality and morbidity exist, but we do recruit all over the Bronx. Another thing that we do to address the maternal health, particularly for Black women, is we have the Bronx Doula Access Project. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I want to show you this flyer. Here it is right here. Now, the Bronx Doula Access Project provides free doula services to any Bronx birthing person. It doesn't matter where they live. But we do focus in the zip codes where these numbers are very significant, by going to recruit folks at Bronx Care Hospital, which used to be Bronx Lebanon. We also are at North Central Bronx. We are trying to have a presence at Lincoln Hospital. We also are at Urban Health Plan, and we also go to several community events. We go to community baby showers. I have a background in organizing and activism. So one of the things I did, by the way, I just started at the Bronx Health Link in January, so I'm a newbie in this organization. So one of the things I'm trying to do is just expose more people to the Bronx Health Link in general and to our programming. And so we're really proud of this program. You know, giving birth in hospitals is a relatively new thing, right? It's a post-war effect. But birthing was always generally just in the hands of a midwife or a doula. And then the, post-war period happens, and we had hospitals start to service birthing persons, even when they didn't need hospitals, right? So technically speaking, you should only go when you need the services of a hospital. And if you're pregnant, you don't need that. You can give birth at home. This is something that's tried and true, and there's history behind it. And what happens is the data shows that when you go to the hospital, sometimes you are subjected to treatment that you don't necessarily need. Some of that is epidural. Sometimes you're forced to get a cesarean section. And those things aren't necessary, not all the time. Doulas are trained to recognize the signs of when you need hospital intervention. So, but for the most part, a doula is what I call an auntie or a titi on 10, right? It is a person who educates you on what's happening to your body. You connect with the person early in their pregnancy, and they're with you throughout the pregnancy through birth. And there's also postpartum care. Our postpartum doula package, and we call it a package because there are different services, but all our services are free. So it's, we have childbirth education classes, we have a birthing package, and we have postpartum services. The city of New York does have a doula initiative, but they don't offer postpartum services, nor do they have any Bronx-based doulas. So that was a significant gap. There would be women who live in the Bronx who would go to the initiative and they would be sent to a different borough. And so we try to address this gap by having the Bronx doula access. And we know that when you have more agency over your body, when you have someone, when you know what's happening to your body, your health outcomes improve. And so this is another way in which we address this maternal mortality and morbidity rate. We have serviced about 500 people with our education classes, and up to almost 100 people with our birthing services throughout the 2 years that we've been in existence with this program. We also offer breastfeeding workshops, safe sleep. We know that SIDS is a problem. So we give workshops on how to put your baby to sleep properly and safely. We have baby carrying workshops. We have infant car safety workshops. We also have workshops on maternal health, mental health, maternal mental health, and self-care. We just launched, I'm sharing my screen because I want to show you, we have a parenting support group, which we just launched. We're going to have our first meeting next week, Tuesday. This is another initiative that I wanted to expand our services into, which is mental health. A lot of my research, which is not health related, my academic research is around immigration and the mental health impacts that a deportable person experiences. I do know that mental health is a big deal within our communities. We have a significant immigrant population in the Bronx, which, they're also having babies, right? So there's a lot of intersectionalities that occur in the Bronx that we are trying to address. We also, I want to let you know, and then I'll I'll hand over to questions because I know someone's leaving at 7:30 and I don't want her to miss Vanessa's presentation. The last thing I want to share is that we are hosting a movie night. Everyone sees this flyer, yes? There's a movie night that we are hosting on the 25th of May, and it's going to be held at the Robbins Auditorium, which is located within the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. The documentary is called Birthing Justice, and it's a movie about the maternal mortality crisis that exists in the United States. The movie will be screened, and then there will be a panel discussion afterward. We're going to have folks from the Department of Health speak. We're going to have my co-director She's a midwife and a doula and a practitioner. She's going to be speaking. We're going to have 2 people from Albert Einstein speak, and I'm waiting for a birthing person to speak as well about their experiences. So we are trying to have a whole wraparound encompassing program and services apparatus to address this really serious issue. Maternal mortality is an issue, and there's a crisis around the United States. The New York Times just published an article a month ago about how hospitals are shutting down their maternity wards, right? Because they're not lucrative. And now we have in a situation where people who are now relying on hospitals to give birth aren't going to be able to give birth. That's another reason to provide these doula services, right? And one other thing I want to say is that we do work with the Birthing Place. They're one of our providers of doula services, and they are advocating very strongly for a birthing center, a standalone birthing center. There isn't one. There's only one in New York City, and there was one in the Bronx that closed almost a decade ago, and we're fighting to get a birthing center open. And the birthing center they want to open is in Riverdale, so it's right in your area of coverage. So just keep on the lookout, and I'm happy to introduce you to the people as well if you would like to meet them. That's my elevator pitch.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Anyone, any brief questions? Or I would love to hear
May I?
from Vanessa. Yeah, please go ahead.
Just very quickly, Sterling, just to say, how to say, I am a person that has been through experiences that are sad and very relevant to what you just said. I couldn't be more appreciative for you coming over and sharing this. I also happen to work in Maurice Parks, actually, like literally a few streets away from where that movie that you presented will take place. So I would love to receive all the information and post it on my organization, which is a business organization, social media. And just to say how the Bronx Borough President also has a female birthing sort of educational initiative. So I would suggest you to connect with her office, because they are very big advocates of safe birthing and education in fetal and maternal care. So you kind of touched a point with me there, and I really appreciate Margaret inviting you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will tell you that I work very close to the Bronx Borough President. My office is in the Bronx Borough Hall, and they actually, our space is there because she gives it to us. So we work very closely with her on these initiatives.
Great to hear.
And I have to tell you, please tell everyone. I'll send the flyer to Margaret, and also join our mailing list, because we have a lot of stuff going on and you'll get all of the news every week. But please do tell everyone and anyone about the movie night, because we want as many people to see this documentary. It will be very impactful, particularly for persons who have personal experiences that are similar to what's going to be discussed. My mom almost passed away. She almost died on the birthing table when she gave birth to my sister. I was there when my sister gave birth, and she had a really scary episode. So, you know, and this is what I say, I challenge anyone to tell me that they don't know, or that they don't know of someone who hasn't had a serious, almost harmful experience with birthing. I challenge anyone to tell me that they've never heard of it before, because it is a crisis.
Thank you. Bob, and then Julie.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for the presentation. That was wonderful. I mean, full of information. And I knew that the maternal mortality rate was higher among Black women than white women. I had no idea it was 10 times higher. That's a really shocking statistic. And I'm wondering, is this, do you know the cause? Is it because of lack of medical treatment during pregnancy, you know, prior to birth, or is it primarily around birth, or is it both, that you know, that this condition, that this fact exists?
Well, there are morbidity issues as well, right? And there's a lot of intersections. So in the Bronx particularly, we also have a disproportionate number of under-resourced neighborhoods. That includes areas that have environmental exposures that expose our residents to higher rates of asthma, diabetes, heart disease, HIV infection is also a very large problem in the Bronx. So just across the board, health-wise, Bronx residents are at the very bottom of the health outcome spectrum. And all of those contribute to comorbidities. So you'll have a woman who might have diabetes and that exposes her to an at-risk pregnancy. Then you compound that with the systemic issues that exist in hospitals to begin with, right? When you look at the medical field just in general, the history is pretty torrid, right? I mean, generations of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people were subjected to really horrible experiments in the name of medical advancement. When you have an institution that is founded on the exploitation of people, marginalized persons, that kind of permeates throughout. And there's also a lot of research that shows that medical students, these are our future doctors, and not just medical students, but some practitioners as well, believe that Black people, because their pigmentation, right, that their skin is thicker and they can experience pain at a higher rate. And that can influence how we treat Black women when they say, I'm in pain, or there's something wrong. So there's a host of intersections that contribute to the harmful treatment of our Black and Brown women.
Thank you. And just one more question. You said that you have this information broken down by zip code, I think you said?
We have zip codes. It's called TREE. There's the Task Force for Racial Inclusion and Equity that the city of New York had formed. And they have a list of zip codes that show a disproportionate rate of all things, and including that would be maternal health.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know where to find that information. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Julie?
Thank you. Shirley, thanks for a great presentation. I heard you mention that there are talks to having a standalone birthing center in the Bronx, perhaps Riverdale. Did you mention, did we ever have a standalone in the Bronx?
We had one, it was in Morris Heights, I think it was. Actually, you know, on our staff, we have our perinatal health educator. She gave birth to her second two sons at that birthing center. And she did it because she had a really poor experience at the hospital. And then it closed down, I wanna say it was like in 2015. And ever since, people have been advocating to have another one.
Do you know why it closed down?
Funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how close are they to establishing one in the Bronx again?
So there are two conversations happening. I know that the Bronx Borough president also is advocating for a birthing center, and they're looking at different sites. They want, I think they're going in the direction of having one that's adjacent to a hospital. And then I know there's the conversation to have a standalone one. Myla Flores, who is the proprietor of the Birthing Place and the Womb Bus, I don't know if you've ever heard, it's this bus. It's kind of, you know how like the ASPCA has a bus that travels
Yes.
from neighborhood to neighborhood? Well, she has one called the Womb Bus, and it provides health education classes and other community services to different neighborhoods. And she is advocating for one. She has a space in Riverdale. There's a location in a park. The park starts with an A, I want to say. And she has that location. She has been speaking with legislators. It's very difficult to get these things actually done. You need a lot of political support. And so she's working on that as well. Where it ends up, we still don't know.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vanessa? Did you have a question?
No, I wanted to say, Shirley, this sounds incredible. As you were speaking, I sent my former medical director at Rikers Island in the female facility that I used to work in. I sent her this information because one of, obviously, we had a number of pregnant women and still do that come onto the island and, have need so much support when they're detained in terms of just, basic education, health education, and then birthing education and, everything that follows afterwards. So we're always looking for services when they are released back to the community and what they can have access to that will be able to help them and be able to support them. And, again, just being at Rikers for as many years as I was in the female facility, I heard, and I that's essentially what I'm gonna just share today, just things and experiences from our women of color who just have shied away from basic health care, just, from their own traumas of actually having gone somewhere and been treated poorly and unfairly. But this sounds like an incredible service that's available. So I really can't wait for them to start connecting with you guys while they're detained and then when they go to leave.
Listen, I'm criminal justice. My PhD is in criminal justice. So tell your contact that I am willing to go in Rikers and, have the education classes, right? Because that's what we're about.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Oh my goodness, that's
I was
phenomenal.
I was literally like shaking as I was texting.
Well, thank you. That's phenomenal. I am feeling like just so heartened that the two of you have been connected, and however we can be supportive of whatever you all do or additional conversations here in the district, we would love to be able to do so. So Vanessa, we'd love to hear from you, from your perspective. You're a licensed master's social worker, LMSW. You've worked at Rikers Island. You're currently at the Chief Medical Examiner's Office. You've worked with survivors of intimate partner violence, of domestic violence, working in mental health and across the board. So we'd love your thoughts and your experience on this. And please, just in case anyone has to jump off before remarks conclude, I'll follow up with both of you. But whatever materials and flyers, et cetera, that you can provide to us, I'll connect you with the office, and then the office will then distribute them throughout the community. And I'll also recommend that they're a part of your mailing list so that they can just get materials directly. But anyway, Vanessa, I'd love to hear from you. So please, thank you for being here.
I just want to say, I do have to leave because I'm actually on campus and I want to go home. Vanessa, though, I don't want to be disrespectful to your presentation. I'm really sorry, but let's connect. I want to continue the conversation. Good night, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you again so much for having me. It's really incredible to hear of initiatives and programs that the Bronx has available to its members, the community, because it is, the Bronx, as the hashtag, the not 62, applies. It's in so many ways just a borough that is needing so much support and so many resources. And so whenever we can find them, we try our best to connect families, in my experiences, women and individuals, whether they're inpatient, hospital, we try to connect them to the best resources that will be able to actually connect with them. As I said, just what I can speak on as a provider in the community, whether it's been an inpatient setting, outpatient mental health settings, Department of Homeless Services, Rikers Island, now the City Medical Examiner's Office. What I can say is that families, individuals, women have shied away from health resources. These are their words. Everything has come because of prior experiences that were not suited for them, just either culturally, in terms of like clear defined like services and roles, what their boundaries were. There's so many horror stories that I've heard from women that essentially there was an attempt, but because they were mistreated or not heard, the not heard piece blows my mind because we have women who have clearly reached out and asked for help, and their pleas have either been overlooked, minimized, critiqued, they've been blamed, and the end result has been women who've had to take matters into their own hands, who've had to commit survival crimes in order to get access to healthcare. I can't tell you the number of times I've worked with women in Rikers Island who have said, I had to do this because I got pregnant and I have to get an abortion, and I know this is the only way to do it, as opposed to going to Planned Parenthood because they can't go all the way to Planned Parenthood because they don't know anybody there in Manhattan or here, and they don't feel safe. They know Rikers Island. So the horror for me has been always hearing so many women, detained women, saying that they've had to commit crimes in order to access basic healthcare and services. And within Rikers Island, a lot of things that people don't realize is that in the women's facility, the programs that exist for the women are absolutely incredible. Like it's so sad that it's not highlighted enough, but in the women's facility, you have some of the most incredible medical providers, therapists who are compassionate, who are absolute advocates, who are supporters, and who go above and beyond to ensure that these women are connected to services in the community when they leave, are connected to services in-house, and are accessing any kind of medical service that they need when they're in the facility. And basic health education is one of the most prominently used services in the facility. Women who have had children but don't understand the nuances of their own, how to take care of themselves, how to take care of, themselves while they're, pregnant. They don't understand a lot of the nuances of like what their health options are if they don't want to continue with this child. So I know that a lot of my work has been providing education and health education for very young women up to, women in their 70s who unfortunately are detained. So I can say that it's frightening to know that fear has kept so many women and stigma from accessing these healthcare services, but it's a very real thing. And it's very frightening to know that for so many of them, they feel like they need to do something to get themselves detained in a familiar setting to access health services because they know the providers are actually compassionate and caring, and they don't feel like they can get that in the community. And that has always blown my mind in terms of just hearing this. So what we've always tried to do is connect people to services, programs in the community that either we've worked in or we've connected with. We feel like this would be a good fit. We do a lot of warm handoffs. I know a favorite thing of mine was when I was working at Rikers and we would be considering like an outpatient program, or we would be considering something. I would have them call with me so they can hear the intake people on the phone. They can get an understanding of what's expected, of what things sound like, because sometimes even just looking at the outside of the building, it's too much. They need to see an image online. They want to do some research. They want to see. So it's just a lot of like trying to do the small steps to start breaking down fears that have been long-standing intergenerational distrust of like medical services and accessing care. A lot of the times women will say, I learned that I should just go to the emergency room when I'm sick because that's what my mother did and that's what my grandmother did. So it's a lot of intergenerational, debunking of what has been a standing practice for so many women that at least I've worked with, and it's always been fun trying to be like, I know your grandma did it, and I know your mom did it, but there are other ways, and this is what your insurance provides, and look what's available. And let's start calling. So it's just literally like, I would call it warm hand holding, because we would just kind of do the smallest things that for us are not much. Like, it's just like, oh, we can just call. Oh, we can just walk in. No, for people that have very deep rooted fears and have already had stigmas and are already concerned that, if they disclose too much, something will happen to them or to their kids. these things are very real, and to start addressing them little by little sometimes makes the hugest difference. So I mean, I can just say that those have been the fundamental experiences that I've had of people just being very fear-based because of those being, treated poorly or just having horrible experiences, and just really providing as much like connection to resources that sound familiar, community resources that they're like, oh, I've seen the sign, I've just never gone in. What do they do? Just a lot of like keeping it in the community, culturally relevant services. Like we know that people there will speak Spanish. We know that people there will speak French, Creole. Being able to connect them to people that look like them, sound like them, and just, have already had some sort of inkling of what is to be expected. So, I mean, those have been my experiences. This might sound like just a jumbled bunch of experiences, but fundamentally, that's what I always carry with me. The reasons why women have not accessed care and not reached out for help, and the lengths that sometimes they've gone to be able to access those services in a familiar place that they know they'll be able to get the care they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it really is so difficult to try to mentally put yourself in someone else's shoes, that people take such risks and perhaps make a decision that you might never consider because you can't really understand where they're coming from and where that fear is, and the experiences that they've had that has led to the fear that they have. It fits into the conversation, like I mentioned last month. Considering that Black women are, those who receive the most violence in partner relationships, and also to consider that Black and brown women may still have trepidations about reporting it, right? So to consider that they are above and beyond those who are most victimized, and still might be underreported, is really, I think that's what everyone loses sleep about at night. In terms of, you mentioned some things that, focusing on like people who look like the community, who can speak specific languages, that materials look familiar and that they're also provided in the languages that the community speak. Those sometimes are overlooked, oftentimes are overlooked, those basic things, and how to connect and how to communicate effectively to people who need the services the most. Are there additional things that you all advocate for in terms of resources or access to resources in the community, or things along those lines? Anything that you might want to highlight?
I know that when I was working in the intimate partner violence program at Rikers, and yes, it is horrifically underreported. The majority of the people I worked with were criminalized survivors. So they were there essentially because of having to protect themselves, or, essentially, try to keep themselves safe, and it ended in the loss of the abuser. Basically, we would have to support them and utilize services from the community. There was two community resources that were profound for us: STEPS, who were under, I believe, Rising Ground, and Women's Prison Association. They, essentially worked, because we were very limited in what we could do in terms of like advocacy. They're detained, and this is now a legal issue, but accessing resources, it was like when we connect with them, they then become the extension of our work, because they can actually do more the actual community work. For us, it was really just kind of having a sense of what is out there to be able to support these women, and it was not a lot for especially the criminalized survivors that we were working with, in terms of like enhanced intimate partner violence work. you know, we would try in terms of going to sit-in meetings or like, you know, conferences that sometimes they would have to try to get an understanding of what more we could do. And it was just, we were very limited in what we were able to do because we were in-house. We couldn't really do much. And it was essentially what we could do is connect them to these two major agencies that could do everything that we weren't able to do. I don't know if that answers the question overall, but there wasn't
Yeah.
enough resources in
Mhm.
terms of for this particular population of women who is detained at Rikers Island.
Mhm. And this is probably the question that people wrestle with all the time, but just gonna ask it. In terms of improving the way that services can be provided in the community, that's basically, you know, it's a core function, I think, of how the New York City Charter directs community boards like us, is to make sure that folks are getting the services that the city provides. Are there, and you know, certainly there's fear, there's and justified fear. There's also fear that is based in sort of adjacent experiences that has contributed, you know, it might be immigration, it might be partners who threaten to send, you know, the cops after you and your children if you don't, you know, do exactly what they want you to do, etc. But in terms of community services, are there ways that that the community can be more of an advocate to ask for, you know, languages, culturally specific service providers, you know, whatever. I guess I'm thinking along the lines of action items. Obviously, we want to bring awareness to all of the concerns that you addressed tonight. But are there things that we could be looking at in terms of how we might make recommendations to various committees here, housing, safety, et cetera, about resources to be provided? It sounds sort of like a roundabout way, but are there things that we could be advocating for ourselves in the community that would enhance the work that you all do?
Oh, that's such an incredible question. Because I mean, it for me, it really just starts with some folks who have figured out that something is inherently wrong in their agency and just kind of starting a little rabble raising and just, you know, making requests. And I mean, I know that for a long time, I was disliked heavily on the island because I would point things out and be annoying and want to know why we don't have information written in Chinese for women who are coming do not speak English. So I feel like that for me always, it depends on who's in these agencies and who is able to point things out and then be able to like speak on it in platforms such as this. But it's like, unless you're physically in a space and you're experiencing it firsthand and it's causing you to not be able to provide care and bring that issue to light and then relay it in platforms like this, it's really hard to know what's going on. Like the actual nuts and bolts of what's happening in these agencies that may actually be pushing people away or may not be like, you know, retaining them in a meaningful way. So it's such a hard question to answer. But for me, it just starts with some very strong voiced people who are not okay with what's happening and then making a little think about it and then coming back over here and letting you guys know about those things.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we began the conversation focusing on maternal health. I thought it was a phenomenal vehicle to get us to talk about ways in which Black and Brown women are not receiving healthcare, are not receiving services that they need. Are there any other areas or any other areas of health, more or less, that that we should focus on that we haven't covered? Just talking about, maternal health and women not being heard, their concerns not being validated or responded to or listened to or followed up on, et cetera. Anything else that you think we should cover? I mean, certainly you have a deep breadth of experience in mental health. I was just wondering if there's anything we haven't necessarily covered in terms of areas of concern and areas that we could highlight the awareness of how folks are not getting services.
Well, I mean, I know that, as I mentioned, I'm also a runner, and I'm a very avid runner in the Bronx, and take part in one of the many new running groups in the Bronx. And the running groups that are coming up in the Bronx are in response to the Not 62 movement and to get more Bronxites moving. All body types, all colors, it doesn't matter who you are, with families, women who are pregnant, women who are coming with children. What we found in a lot of those groups and a lot of evenings is women discussing these issues like this, having gone to the doctor or having had a horrible experience. I think the run groups that are popping up all over the Bronx are becoming very much so health oriented and very safe spaces for a lot of our women of color in the Bronx. I hear a lot of meaningful dialogue coming out of running along with people or walking with them about their health concerns, things that they're trying to address, and things that they are, fearful of. And I think that these spaces are very much so not on the radar because, we're running groups and, we're just out running. People don't realize that these groups become communities. They become extensions of family. You become very, very close with these people and you begin to learn about, health disparities that are happening within our own little running groups. So I think those are overlooked spaces that I know my group, Boogie Down Bronx Runners, does attend health fairs. We do like to discuss about, the benefits of running, walking, bringing your family out for movement and so forth. And then, just like any other thing, some dialogue starts happening about their own health issues or mental health issues. And then the conversations kind of just being like, oh, I'm a social worker and I know of this place and that place. So for me, it's these are spaces that are very overlooked. And I think that, being able to have people from different backgrounds collectively in one space running and sharing their own experiences or, what their fears are about their own health issues. I think it's been a very meaningful way of learning about how deep the actual well goes when it comes to the health disparities that have happened and the experiences that people have had. I don't know. I think it's an interesting space that people really don't look at to kind of find out, what's really going on in the community with our Bronx members.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Bob?
Yeah, I again, thank you very much for the presentation and the conversation. I'm unclear on one thing. So some of the services that you've been talking about, you can actually provide at Rikers. But are there also services that are accessible to prisoners while they're still serving their sentences? In other words, are they able to leave at any point under supervision, or is that out of the question? Is that not possible?
Yeah,
Not
that
possible.
one's, yep, that's definitely out of the question.
Okay, so what?
I'm
So
sorry to interject. Unless they have a dire medical emergency, they will go to outside hospital. I used to work over at Gazelle. I'm sorry. I was an
Yeah.
So unless it's
Yeah.
a dire emergency where they have to go to a hospital, they're not allowed to go out. No.
Right. Yeah. But the basic health care that, takes place on the island in facilities and the different areas of the facilities itself. But unless, it is a dire emergency or they're giving birth where they have to obviously take them off the island to be able to
Right.
give birth.
So, so aside from the services that you're providing within Rikers, you're also counseling them to prepare them for when their sentence is over and they're back outside, and advising them about agencies and organizations that might be able to provide them with assistance of one sort or another once they finish their sentence.
Correct. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we do. And there's also the mental health teams who are on, at each facility who do a lot of the discharge planning as well. And I know my unit used to do a lot of cross collaboration with them because we worked very, very closely with the women, and we sometimes had a much stronger connection with them, and were able to kind of get a better sense of what they were looking for. So we would be able to then share that with the mental health team and work collaboratively on their discharge plan to be able to honor what it is that they're looking for.
Yeah, so I see, I mean, that this I know is what Margaret was talking about, or part of what Margaret was talking about, that, this is where the community board and the community can play a role. When these women are back out in the community and need help and need assistance and need to know where they're going to find the help and assistance that they need. So, that's where we can be, I think, of some value.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And let's not forget the men as well. I used to work in the men's facility, so the men too. But discharge planning is great. Yeah, I used to work on OBCC.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Vanessa? Okay, great. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it, and all that you shared with us to sort of expand our knowledge or understanding of what people are living with and how they're making decisions. And ultimately, hopefully it'll help awareness in the community, but ultimately folks who make decisions about resources in the community. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you
I'm
so
sorry,
much for having
I
me.
have one question for Vanessa.
Oh, sure.
Is there any way, I'm sorry, is there any way I can contact you? Because I am interested in, that type of work. I was a correctional officer, former correctional officer. I went into homelessness. I went into mental health afterwards, and now I'm in education. So
That's amazing.
is it
That's
anything I can
amazing.
do to just step in? It's people like me who seen that type of environment and see what, the dire need for certain situations. Even like I said, working in mental health, my clients, they, we're begging for stuff, and homeless shelter, they're begging for stuff, and we're begging for stuff and trying to get them, things going on. So I just wanted to know if there's anything I can do to get in contact with you to help with any cause.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know if, I can just essentially, Margaret, give you my contact information. I believe you have it so that can be shared, or I don't know if any other way I can do it. I'm happy to
I don't know.
share
This
it.
is my first meeting. Look, this is my first meeting. I signed up many times.
Oh,
Yeah, that's my first time. Yeah, I
that's
signed up
great.
many times, and this is the first time I actually joined. Because I'm like, it's been calling me, and I'm like, I'm an activist in myself. You know what I'm saying? And I'm the one of those people that call in my community. I called 311. I called, I called. I live in NYCHA, so it's like I called downtown. I call uptown. People need repairs here. I'm calling and I'm calling and I'm calling. So I'm one of those type of people. So that's what I believe that my calling is to help. So I guess I
That's
can give y'all
great.
my
Well,
information. But I'm here. This is my first meeting, and I did enjoy it. I just was listening most
I
of the time.
love it. I'm so
That's
happy you're
amazing.
here. That's great.
Yes, thank
Well,
you.
Renee, if you could
Yes.
email the office, there's like this email that distributes information to people. And it's
Yes, I got the email.
you might already, yeah, the BX08 one. You
Yes.
have that
Mhm.
email?
Yes, I do.
Just
Yes, I do.
email that, and they'll put us in touch to say, I want to
Okay.
follow up on the meeting. And
Okay.
then
Not a
we can
problem.
be input. Yeah, I can connect you.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, that's great.
Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Well, Vanessa, thank you again for your time tonight, your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we just have one last matter to talk about. We have the next month is our last meeting of the fiscal year. And I believe we are still approved to have our meeting on the first Thursday of the month. So unless I hear otherwise, we're having the meeting as such. And we've got this interim report that all of a sudden it is May and we need to do some work on things. So last month, we did have a brief update in areas that needed to be completed or worked on. So I will send a message to the committee to just remind everyone of areas to be worked on. And then I suggest next month we just work through the additional updates, things that we wanted to include. I still haven't seen the updated data from the borough president on the demographics of the community board. And I'll follow up with her, but apart from just updates and things like that that we need to do for the interim report, Julie and Bob, are there other things that you wanted us to address in the June meeting? Or how does that plan sound to you?
Your plan sounds good. I don't have anything to add to it.
Yeah, I agree. You know, we have to update the report, and that really should be our top priority. So, and I, you know, have to confess, I don't know where we are in that right now. So I really do need, you know, your reminder about what needs to be done so that we can get it done in time. But yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Okay. Yeah, that'll give us a few weeks to do some independent work. I know there's, like, for instance, one of the things that usually takes the most time, which I guess I'm behind on, is that I usually try to go through the minutes of each standing committee and highlight areas that the committee has focused on regarding racial equity. And we have a running list of areas that each committee has taken on over the last 3 years. So I usually try to give chairs a bit of flexibility in starting that off. I'm a little behind on that, but hopefully people feel comfortable with the process now, and there'll be more understanding of a quick turnaround because they've seen this process happen previously and they've contributed their anything that I've missed, and hopefully that will be resolved. There's a few other things that we need to include, you know, some additional data points from the last couple of presentations. And I think those are the bulkiest things off the top of my mind. We probably need to look at the funding priorities that have been submitted to David, the budget committee, and add them to the map as well so that we can continue to keep that up to date. Other than that, I think those are the
just going to
bulkiest
say that,
things.
Margaret. I'm sorry. I was just going to say that now that we have the final requests, capital and expense requests, and we can relate them to that wonderful map that you created, and, you know, see if we're still focusing on the right areas.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, let me go back to my list and see what I've missed that from the items that I just rattled off right now. And then we'll dive into things. I'll send an email reminder and then we'll work through it together in June with the goal of wrapping up the interim report by the end of the month. I think we'll be able to do it. Okay. One thing, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, last interim report, we had a 2-page executive summary that last time, I believe we just signed off as the committee. You know, we highlighted the work of individuals on the committee. But we had that executive summary coming from just us overall. So we do need an executive summary of this year. Is anyone interested in tackling that? It's usually a recap or a highlight of things that have happened within the year that have stood out to us or have informed our conversations. I mean, perhaps this emphasis on Black and Brown women's health could be an area of focus, but certainly there are a number of things going on in the world that we usually use this as a snapshot. So I welcome any volunteers.
I'd be willing to help, but I wouldn't want to take on the whole thing myself. So
I'll
if we
be
can
willing
find
to help, but I
somebody
just don't
else.
know much. Look, I'm like, I don't know much. I'm willing to help with
Okay.
editing or
All
even
right,
helping writing. If
well,
you can
I'll
give me a
start with
template,
sort of the initial draft, and then obviously we'll send it to everyone so that you can help me shape it. Okay, so I do have a lot to work on over the next couple of weeks. Okay.
Margaret,
Anything
I'll
else
work-
that we want to talk about? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'll work with Bob on the 2-page summary, because you do have a lot
Okay.
to do.
Okay. Well, I'll send you you know, my initial thoughts, and then I'd love for both of you to you know, give your edits and shape it as you see fit.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, great. Anything else that we want to address tonight? Okay. I have mentioned at the last few meetings that we're looking for additional members. I understand we have a number of openings for chairs across committees, and that folks probably are a little hesitant to take on yet another committee. But any additional thoughts or suggestions that you have on how to increase the number of committee members?
You know, I think the best thing we can do, Margaret, is make the pitch at the executive committee meeting next month, and also at the board meeting next month, but also to you know, highlight some of what you've done this year, the presentations, the conversations we've had, the issues we've focused on. You know, I mean, I think that's the best argument for this committee is the work the committee has been doing. So you know, maybe if we can put together this sort of summary, if we can have it done by the executive committee meeting in June, you know, that would be a document we could share, and that's, you know, that's probably the best advertisement for the committee that there is.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay. All right, good. Well, I do not have anything else on my agenda. Last call for any other topics to be covered.
No,
No,
I
I
just wanted
just
to
want to
say-
say thanks for a good meeting, really. You always give us good meetings, very informative.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Julie. Thank you. was-
Well,
it
thank
was-
you both. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, the presentations were great. Thank you for setting it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for both being here tonight. I really appreciate your presence and your always thorough questions. So thank you. Okay, well, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you both soon.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night.